College athletes pay for play. The purpose of this presentation is to look at the NCAA and college athletic programs to see why college athletes should be paid for playing while in college. So, what is pay for play? Pay for play is the idea that college athletes should be compensated for their talent at the college level. This payment is one that would go alongside the scholarship that college athletes receive to attend school. Before diving deeper into why college athletes should be paid, let's look at the history of collegiate sports and how it came to what it is today. The National Collegiate Athletic Association, or the NCAA, was formed in 1910 from the Intercollegiate Athletic Association. The original purpose for the NCAA was to help form rules that could be applied to the various collegiate sports. The formation of the NCAA was a response to a high death toll in intercollegiate football. In 1905, there were over 18 deaths and 100 major injuries. There was, along, along with the high injuries and death toll, there was also a growth in the popularity of college sports. With this increase in popularity, there was a high desire to win. As mentioned, there was an increase in popularity, and the NCAA saw that it was necessary to have rules and regulations. The NCAA oversaw regulating athletic competition, sports gambling, and recruiting. The NCAA set rules to help physically protect athletes during game play. Football was one sport that needed regulating because of the intensity of the game and lack of protection. Next, gambling and excessive recruiting forced the NCAA to enforce more rules. These rules were known as the Sanity Code and were put in place to prevent the exploitation of college athletes. Things for the NCAA started to change when they signed their first television deal in the 1950s. The contract was worth $1 million. Because of the television contract, the NCAA was able to secure sponsorships from various companies. These sponsorships led to an increase in revenue and power. This was a stepping stone that helped the NCAA become the powerhouse it is today. Like I've mentioned before, the television contract was a stepping stone in helping the NCAA grow. Meanwhile, college athletics departments started to grow also. Let's look at how the growth affected college athletic departments. The first response to the growing athletic department was to create divisions. In 1973, the NCAA created three separate divisions. Each division is determined by school size and budget. Division 1 is the only division that can give out full athletic scholarships. Division 2 will give out a mix of athletic and academic scholarships, and Division 3 does not give out any athletic scholarships. You'll see that most of the top talent in America will go to Division 1 schools to play because they get a full ride. With the increase in budget over the years, college athletic departments have been able to expand to keep up with the competition. Let's look at the operational breakdown of a department. For this operational breakdown, we are going to look at athletic scholarships, coaches' salaries, and facilities. It is a dream of many high school student athletes to play at the collegiate level on a full ride. For many, this scholarship can help change their lives for the better. If a high school athlete is good enough, then they have a chance of getting a college athletic scholarship. About 2% of high school students will earn a college athletic scholarship. Division 1 and Division 2 schools provided approximately $3.6 billion in athletic scholarships in 2019 to over 180,000 student athletes. This $3.6 billion consisted of not only new incoming athletes, but also athletes that had already been there. Oftentimes, these scholarships will cover the total cost of attending school along with room and board. For Division 1 sports, athletes can receive a multi-year scholarship, but each year is not always guaranteed. To get the scholarship renewed, there are typically GPA requirements, player conduct, and minimum credit hours. Athletes not only get their bachelor's degree, but also their master's degree with multi-year scholarships. In the long run, a full ride scholarship or even a partial scholarship can help a student athlete by not having high amount of student loans. Now let's look at the coach's salary. Coach's salary is another factor that is budgeted into the operational cost. More than 100 coaches make over $1 million per year. The $1 million is just the median salary. Coaches start their career making significantly less at the graduate assistant level, but they can also make more the higher in the ranks that they get. Not only does a college coach get a significant payout, but they also get special privileges that aren't monetized, such as access to private planes and country club memberships. In some special cases, there are college coaches that become celebrities nationwide. Nick Saban, who is a head coach at the University of Alabama, is a prime example of a coach that has become a national celebrity. In 2017, Saban made $11 million more than any other coach in American sports. Other than scholarships and coaches' salaries, athletic departments factor in the cost to keep up and upgrade their facilities. Athletic departments have strayed far from focusing on just the nice stadiums and arenas. Between 2004 and 2014, the Power Five conferences, the ACC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, Pac 12, and SEC, doubled their spending on facilities. In 2014, 48 athletic departments spent $772 million combined on upgrades. Today, athletic departments have paired their nice stadiums and arenas with even nicer practice facilities, locker rooms, and player lounges. One example is Clemson. Clemson spent $55 million for a facility makeover. They added in a volleyball, sand court, laser tag, movie theaters, and bowling, just to name a few of the amenities. These upgrades are not just for the current athletes, but also to attract new athletes. Having a good athletic program, good coaches, and a winning team is important, but recruits also like to see nice facilities. That's ultimately the cherry on top for what school they decide to go to. They want to know that they can work hard and play hard in the same space since they will be spending a lot of their time there. What's being spent on college athletic facilities so far can be described as excessive, but it's only considered the starting point. Another reason colleges can make elaborate upgrades is with the help of donations by alumni. Each year, a college athletic department produces a new way to upgrade their facilities, causing a never-ending competition. Now let's look at the athletes themselves and what financial struggles they face and why they don't get paid. While some college athletes are awarded multi-year full scholarships to attend and play for the school, they still have the struggle of affording things that are not covered by the scholarship. The scholarships athletes receive will cover tuition, room and board, fees, and books. Some scholarships come with additional academic accommodations, but they still do not help with non-academic expenses. Some athletes come from lower socioeconomic status, which means they do not have a lot of money to begin with. For these athletes, going to college on a full scholarship is one step towards bettering themselves and bettering their family back home. There's federal funding that they receive by filling out the FAFSA. These funds will go into the athletes' pockets, but are oftentimes still not enough to pay for non academic expenses. At times, the money they get from the FAFSA will be sent back home to help their families. Athletes are not paid directly due to the NCAA not wanting to break their amateur status rule. These are strict rules enforced by the NCAA, which makes it hard for any student athlete to receive financial assistance from sources other than the school, the government, and their family. These rules apply whether the athlete has a scholarship or not. Understandably, the NCAA and the colleges want to protect the athlete's chances of going pro. In the long run, this can help an athlete ultimately get more money by going pro, but the sad reality is that not every athlete will get the chance to go pro. While studies have shown that college athletes bring in large revenue to the school, they are still not paid. One reason they are not paid is due to Title IX compliance that is enforced by the Department of Education. They view paying athletes as an extra perk that normal students could not get. However, over the past few years, there has been changes to allow more money to be put in the pockets of the athletes. Another reason college athletes aren't paid is that it threatens the nature of what it means to be a college athlete. College will become a minor league system, especially for football, since there is not a minor league program at this time. This threat will undermine the goal of the educational purpose that the NCAA put in place. The NCAA has rules in place to make sure athletes are not exploited and taken advantage of. Lastly, colleges wouldn't be able to pay every athlete and still turn a profit. The sad reality is there are more sport programs that bring in more money, and that money will go towards those other sports that aren't are not bringing in as much money as, let's say, football. When talking about pay for play, the concept of amateur status is one that needs to be looked at. Amateur status is a status of an athlete that has not been paid for their talent. The NCAA defines amateurism by law 2, which explains that athletes playing college athletics is to remain amateurs to be motivated by education and athletics. Some could argue that a scholarship could be considered payment, but since the athlete does not pocket any of the money, the amateur status stays in effect. Another way a college athlete can retain their amateur status is that they give consent to their naming rights. This means that the NCAA can use an athlete's name or photograph for charity and educational purposes without giving the athlete financial compensation. So far, we've talked about what the millions of dollars generated goes towards in college athletics, and we've looked at a college athlete's financial experience. So now let's talk about why they should be paid. It is fair to say that college athletes are being compensated at the Division One and Two level since they are being awarded scholarships to cover their academic fees. However, these scholarships are not enough to cover other necessities, and compared to everyone else, they are not getting paid nearly as much. Some can argue that college athletes could get a job to have extra money, but the truth is their sport takes up just as much time as a full time job. There are rules in place to limit how much time an athlete can practice. The NCAA regulates practice to 20 hours a week, but colleges have found loopholes through this rule. Outside of practices, athletes will have meetings, weightlift sessions, conditioning, and physical therapy, all of which goes into being a full time top performing athlete. All of these extra obligations take up time that the athlete would use to go out and get a part time job. Even if an athlete decides to get a job, they will ultimately burn out due to overworking themselves. Due to the strictness of the NCAA amateur rules, there leaves room for rules to be broken. There have been a fair amount of court cases where an athlete or a university has broken the rules. Southern Methodist University is a prime example. SMU was caught paying several of their players. This court case is known as McCormack versus NCAA. The courts ruled in favor of the NCAA due to violating the amateur rule. The punishment of this violation was a death penalty, which resulted in a lost season and put on probation until 1990. While there are still amateur laws in place to protect the student athlete, there does come a point where the rules are doing more harm than good. Reviewing and editing the rules will not only give athletes more compensation for their talent, but it will also help with decreasing violations. And lastly, athletes should be paid because everyone else is profiting. The NCAA, the media, the college athletic departments, and the coaches. Everyone else is able to make money off of the athletes' talent and skills, so why can't the athletes? The NCAA and colleges make a profit off of collegiate athletes. They can do this because they set the rules. Athletes are given scholarships to have a free education, but it's not enough. Based off the time commitment, they don't have time to get a job to cover non academic expenses. While how college athletes get paid is a question, the fact is they should get paid. College athletes should be able to profit from their skills just like the NCAA and colleges do. Thank you.